go. What's going on, guys? Welcome in. Welcome in. Hell of a day today. Today's one of the days I think. I mean, that was probably one for the books. Just waking up to what we saw, to what pretty much transpired today was just, I think, one of those type of historic type of days in terms of price action. Very drastic right now. Um, I know that Tesla's pretty much reporting their earnings here right now, so that's something I was pretty much keeping my eye on. It's definitely a good sign to see it up about 4% here after hours. It would have been pretty much pretty bad if we would have saw Tesla just drag the entire market with Netflix already bringing us down. And then to just piggyback off of that, you had what Facebook pulled out today, which was also just pretty much detrimental to the entire market sentiment. So today's price action was just pretty drastic across the board. Randy, what's going on? Welcome in. So again, we had that pretty much that bloody morning off of Netflix. That already continued to drag. I was watching that 220 level, and that was pretty much that key level. I believe I mentioned 220 was that exact spot in the line in which I was watching. At one point in the morning, we pretty much retested that spot as resistance. Then we made that second push. We got up as high as 228 before we pretty much made a nice little U-turn. So that one's gonna continue to drag. I would expect Netflix to head down towards 200. That's why I'm pretty much watching Netflix here within the next week to two. I would pretty much presume that it's gonna get down towards that $200 mark sooner rather than later. We could see a little bit of a continued bounce. I think it's a little deemed for a continuation of a bounce rather than just dropping it all the way down to 200. We know markets don't just go straight in a line, so I would expect we get some kind of sympathy bounce on the Netflix here within the next day or two. But that is will be contingent upon the broader market. And so, in that same breath, what we actually saw with Facebook today was pretty much astonishing because I did not see that kind of drastic movement out of Facebook here today. That was one that was a little bit startling to me. I also did drop that chart pretty much on my Twitter here, and that's why you saw I actually pretty much tagged also the alerts, which also caught my attention. We had the Nimbus puts, the unusual puts, and the rapid puts all go off earlier this morning on Facebook, and they all basically all hit the same strike, same expiration, right? That was something that caught my attention. They hit the 190s, and that was something I wanted to see in terms of the chart. And I'm like, why are they hitting the 190s? But it basically looks like we're gonna get this nice little choppy decline right into their earnings, which are doing the 27th here, which is roughly about next week, if I'm not mistaken. And so we'll likely see Netflix, Facebook pretty much drop out. We'll likely test those lows at that 186. And then hopefully we get this double bottom in which I'm projecting it's going to happen at that 186 mark. And that'll be the point of where potentially we look to go long on Facebook. So this is one I think there's more pain incoming. But as you see, pretty much the last time that we had that kind of drastic price action was basically back from March 7th, in which we had a similar drop and we pretty much projected right into new lows at that point in time. So definitely a big price action in terms of that, along with what we had with Netflix. Those two were pretty much what I actually had my eyes on most of the day, to be honest with you, right? Those are two of my biggest leading indicators in terms of the market just dragging as we saw it pretty much throughout the day. And as you saw, me and Avery were not on live too much today. It's just because obviously you saw the trend. Avery laid out DEFCON for you and ideas. We told you we were going to pretty much continue to pretty much drop off. We do still expect that to happen through this week here. So that's basically what I'm looking at. And as I pretty much get right into SPY, we had that nice push. I gave you that scenario in which we had this nice little megaphone action going on. It started off as a nice little gap up that we had that did not hold. So I'm gonna look to see if tomorrow, if we likely retrace down to that anchor VWAP I still have sitting there, 442 half. Let's see if that ends up being retested tomorrow. If maybe Tesla ends up giving those gains up by morning, we end up testing those at an anchor VWAP. and then we maybe find support at that level. So 442 is really just a line in the sand for me. Otherwise, my breakout point here would be potentially pushing this north of today's price action over that 447 half, and then we can make that push up towards 450. All right, pretty much very straightforward of what I'm looking at. So we push north of that 447 half. I'm looking at 450. We get down towards the anchor VWAP 442 half. I'm looking to see if we find support there. Otherwise, we lose that anchored VWAP. We're coming right back down, and we're talking about potentially making a lower low down towards 437 rather quickly. All right. So that's pretty much what my gist is of looking at SPY right now. Just glancing back at Tesla, it's hovering still above about roughly 4% here after hours. And the daily chart just basically looks a bit like a descending broadening wedge action here, is what I pretty much get out of this. And so I'm going to look tomorrow morning. Key level I'm watching here is breaking over this 1029 mark. I want to see if we can get over this 1029 mark. If we get over 1029 tomorrow morning, then we could see this start to push north of this pretty much a zone I want to say, making a move up towards 1045. If we claim over that 1045, then I'm watching 1053 is that spot I'm looking at. So those are pretty much the three key levels to the upside. Otherwise, if we see by morning that we start to pretty much regress right back under that 1K mark, then we're going to start talking about 974, which is basically lower than what we ended up having today. And then we could start talking about lower projection, in which we'll likely see this drop off down towards 923 if she loses 974. And that's going to be a drastic fall to the downside. All right. But as of right now, I would expect to see this tomorrow morning. Let's see her push north at that 1029 level, and then she'll make a push up towards 1044. All right. So that's basically what I'm looking at for Tesla. I'm glad to see that it actually got a good sign of relief in this. After Netflix tumbled, Facebook tumbled, I was hoping that Tesla wouldn't tumble because that would be detrimental for the broader market. All right. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at. One thing I did want to also key in on was hopefully those of you that are pretty much saw the cloud alerts. That's pretty much one of the things I wanted to highlight right now is that those cloud alerts today were just phenomenal. I think that was probably one of the best things that we provided in terms of guidance, in terms of your trades that you basically want to take. That should be pretty much stress free, easy money for you. That was one of the things that TFC has pretty much started to build out for you guys, and that today was pretty much the best example of what is to come for those cloud alerts. And so that's one of the things I wanted to highlight today on my live here was, as you saw, we had earlier on, we had the QQQ puts. That was right on the money. You had a quick, easy 20% out of that. The next one I think that ended up triggering was, I believe, Target. That was one Avery went to the gym. He pretty much locked in the trade. He set a sell limit of 20% to lock in his profits. That was easy money for him. So even the one, no, at the fact that he built Target itself, that algo, it was just easy money for him after the fact now. It's just you pretty much plug and play and that's it. Let it go to work for you. And that was one of the things I pretty much wanted to highlight of that. We had back-to-back shot. The first shot played out perfectly. It took a little bit of time, and that's why I was alluding on live. Uh, when you're playing names like Tesla, like Shop, one of the best things for the small account portfolios is basically using those debit spreads, right? Whether it be a put spread, call spread, those are pretty much to alleviate one, the premium of what you would pay. Instead of paying $1,000 for basically at the money or in the money strike, you're basically paying a fraction of that. That's one of the benefits of having those spreads. And then two is that when you actually have the stock not go in your direction, your favor, it doesn't hurt your premium as much. So that's one thing that two things I basically like out of that. So that's basically the best way I would say to pretty much look to play that out. Um, Obviously, knowing the projection, all right, the stock's gonna make a $12 move. You try to get a decent amount of a debit spread out in the money. Maybe it'd be about what 10, 12 strikes out of the money, and you're able to capitalize on that pretty easily. All right. And Randy, appreciate that. Glad to hear that you banked on that. We got a few comments in the Discord. I'm actually just glad to see that majority of you were able to capitalize on those cloud alerts, and that's just pretty much a flash of what's to come as we continue to build that out. So definitely wanted to pretty much allude to that. So other than that, though, I don't have much on the watch list going into tomorrow, other than pretty much keeping an eye on Tesla. We'll see how Facebook and Netflix is able to rebound tomorrow morning. I'm not so confident that we're going to get in the move that we want in terms of saying a V-shaped recovery. I'm not confident in saying that because I do still expect pretty much more downside in the broader market. Definitely the fact that Microsoft was pretty much green for most of the day. Apple held its own pretty flat to green for most of the day. Otherwise, today would have been a lot more brutal for Nasdaq feuds, and that would have got really ugly. All right. But other than that, kind of sums up what I wanted to mention, what I wanted to highlight off of the day. We'll see if Tesla can hold that 1K mark by morning, whether there be some analyst upgrades, downgrades by morning. We'll see what they end up, how they respond to that. And that'll likely be a telling story right there for the broader market, along with seeing if Netflix has any kind of bounce in it coming tomorrow. All right. But other than that, that kind of wrapped up, kind of short and sweet of what I really want to pay attention to. But other than that, pay attention to tomorrow morning. I would pretty much pay attention to the dark pool. Dark pool's been a killer for me right now. It picked out Procter and Gamble rather early this morning for me. It also picked on Marathon Petroleum for me. That was a quick little snipe that I got in and out on that. I also picked out AMD on that one. There was some dark pool on AMD. And what you basically want to look for with the dark pool is that you look to see what price point they hit the dark pool at. And then the next thing you want to know is, all right, is the current price above or below? And that's going to basically tell you if that was a buy or sell order off of the dark pool. And so, like this morning on AMD, what I ended up seeing, I was like, all right, AMD was hit at this dark pool price, and it's currently under pre-market. That's when I knew that that was a sell order on AMD and dark pool. And as you saw, the stock pretty much went down about $3 here into the close. And that's how I was pretty much able to fish that out. The other one was Procter and Gamble. They hit about 80 million in dark pool this morning. And so as you saw, that one ripped about $5 almost today. And I saw it this morning just rip right out the gate. It was already above the dark pool level before the bell. That's another one that pretty much I want to highlight. So pay attention to the dark pool page. It's there. We provide it as a resource for all of you right now. So I definitely would take advantage of that dark pool page. I think that's pretty much what I've been keying in on right now. It's been helping a lot on knowing what stocks in particular to really pay attention to, because honestly, I don't pay as much attention to the oil names and also to, your little commodity type names. So definitely has helped in picking out which names in particular you really want to key in on, and what's really being accumulated or being sold off. All right. But to keep it pretty short, I know that we had a pretty rough day today. We'll see what tomorrow's price action gives tomorrow morning. We'll go from there. But I think that'll probably wrap up today's session, guys. Appreciate you guys joining. Hopefully, I kind of gave you guys some nice tips, and then gave you a little insight into tomorrow. But other than that, I'll kind of wrap it up there. We'll close it out short and sweet today, and that'll be all for me. All right. Appreciate you guys joining. I'll see you guys on live tomorrow morning. But other than that,